My name is Kevin McMahon. I love home automation. And from literally a teenager, I have loved using a computer to make something happen in the real world. And I've been that way since a kid. I mean, I wrote my first home automation system in Visual Basic, not even Visual Basic.net, Visual Basic, to control X10, if anyone remembers or knows X10. Got the RS-232 interface. I had to write my own everything to make it work, my own flow control, all that stuff. And I just love it. And I love communications. I installed the first internet connection at Innovative when I was 18, 21. And the first T1 line, the first phone system. I love all that stuff that has computers doing things in the real world. So that's what really excites me. That's why I'm here tonight. I'm also obviously a programmer and stuff like that. So I want to kind of tell you what I think I'd like to do, but then have this group tell me what you're most interested in, because I don't want to bore anybody. But I was kind of thinking of making this both a home automation and a Python conversation. Is that interesting and enjoyable? Okay. And as I say, I get excited. I talk fast. Please stop me, ask questions. I love showing this stuff. I mean, this is Josh. It took about 8 seconds for me to say yes, I would come present to Josh tonight. I will also throw out there that I am fairly new to Python. Innovative does a lot of AWS work, and we do a lot of Python with AWS, Amazon Web Services. And I'm a consultant, so I do a lot of design work. And I'm very early in learning Python. So those of you who are experts, please be kind, but also please be happy to point out to me, hey, here's some things you could do better. So please don't look at my code as good code, because it probably isn't good Python code. So at my house, among other things, is a small Nook, a small computer that's running Home Assistant. And all over the house are a bunch of tablets, iPads, and Fire tablets, because they're cheaper, showing more or less what you're seeing here. It looks kind of like this as their main display. And so just to kind of show you that this really works, if this is one of the, sorry, got to sign into this. These are the cameras for my house. So you've got 3 outside views, my garage and my living room. So if I zoom in on the living room, and you can see it's fairly bright in here right now. Whoops, sorry, wrong button. And if I come back over here to my Home Assistant instance, and this is my living room icon, and I click on it and nothing happens. Don't you love demos? Hang on a sec. Okay, that's better. And now you can see it's dark in my living room, so it actually works. Up on the fireplace mantle, let me turn the light back on, but up on the fireplace mantle, you can see this display. I'll hold it up to the camera in a moment, but that's what I brought here. Really? Sorry. So now we can actually see the room again. So up on the fireplace mantle is this display, and next to it is an Amazon Echo. Unfortunately, we're not all at my house. So if you ever want to take a field trip with your Python group, let me know and we can do a demo there. So I can't show off everything, but just to give you some ideas of what's going on. Not surprisingly, the automation system can control all the lights, almost all the lights. If you look behind that table there's my fireplace. This will take a minute, but it's a gas fireplace, and I got so tired of the thermostat that came with it, because it only worked in the house. I couldn't turn it on my way home. So I actually ripped all the guts out of my gas fireplace, and I just replaced it with a bunch of low voltage relays, and did a bunch of code around that. Yeah. So in addition to all the programming, I like to get into the electronics and soldering, that sort of thing. And so I was able to find the right wires in there to make it so I can control the heat, well, turn the heat on and off. And then I got the same feeling about my furnace. I didn't like anything on the market that you could buy that was Wi-Fi connected, because they were all like either stealing your data or costing $1 million. I'm not a tinfoil hat guy, but I just got tired of it because they either wanted your money or your data in order to turn my damn furnace on and off. So I found all the wires that went upstairs to the thermostat, and I just set up a bunch of relays to connect to it. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, I'll put it up on the screen real quick. Let me just open a new tab. Lose track of everything I'm doing. An ESP32. These are the coolest little doodads. Let's see. I'll show you the one that I like the best. These are the coolest little doodads. They're so cheap. $3 from whatever site, eBay. I get them from Amazon for a little more, so I don't have to wait for the shipping. And they're little tiny computers that get attached to Wi-Fi, and they can also do Bluetooth. I better watch it. I can talk for 4 hours on this. And you can program them with MicroPython, which is a language, or CircuitPython, which is Python but meant for these little devices, or you can totally cheat. It's so cool. You can use this thing called ESP Home. So my Home Assistant friend on the call right now, if you haven't got into ESP Home, get into ESP Home, because everything that I had to do to set up the relay controller, which is an ESP32, that controls my furnace, I didn't write a line of code on the device itself. It's all this fun and games with YAML. There's actually a little display on this particular ESP32. But essentially, I told it which pins to use for cooling, which is pin 17, for the fan, which is pin 2, for the heat, which is pin 1, and then inside Home Assistant, now we'll get into some actual Python, I promise. Inside of Home Assistant, this is a program, again, for my Home Assistant friends. This is a program that it's called AppDaemon, which allows you to write Python code to control, well, Home Assistant, instead of having to do the automations that are built into Home Assistant, which are not for programmers, because programmers get frustrated with declarative stuff sometimes. It's all very declarative. In here, you can actually write code. So you can see that I have this thing that says, if the temperature in the fire, so I actually have a temperature probe underneath the mantle, over the fireplace, not in the fireplace, but over it. And so if it's more than 200 degrees in there, that's bad. The house is going to burn down. So I do all sorts of things like have a safety shutdown and everything. But if it's more than 110 degrees, that's good. Turn on the blower so that it blows out warm air. And then if it gets to less than 100 degrees in there, turn off the blower, so we're not blowing cool air into the room. And all of these things, up here, I subscribe to events. So in this case, fireplace temperature change events. So I don't have to worry about the event handling or anything else. This AppDaemon and Home Assistant, every time the temperature changes, this routine gets fired, and I just do whatever I want to do, which in this case is turn on the fireplace blower or turn off the fireplace blower. So none of this is brain surgery, but the sky is the limit. There is nothing you can't do. I'm going to pause for a second. Any questions, comments, stuff you want to talk about more? Do you want me to shut up?
So the devices
yes, exactly. And so,
can you repeat that, please?
I apologize. Josh just asked the little device. He was asking about these little holes here, and he was wondering if they were places just to solder a wire on. And the answer is yes. So all I do there is, in the case of the controller for the furnace, I soldered on 3 independent relays. So 3 wires, 1 to each of those holes plus ground. And making the calls, I can trigger the relays. And then the relays plug into the 24-volt heating and cooling system relays. So they have way too much power for me to plug directly into there. So what do they say? Let out the magic smoke, try it. But I just, with the relays, the furnace thinks it's being controlled by a regular old thermostat, and only I know the difference. Does that answer your question? Any other questions? The fireplace is different. That I got an off-the-shelf relay controller because I'm putting it in a hot, dangerous place. I didn't want to risk blowing something up. Whereas the thermostat for the furnace is 5 feet away from the furnace, not inside of it. The explosions are bad. The fireplace? With the what? So these products, there's a whole bunch of them, they're from a company called Espressif, ESPREIF or something like that. Hang on, I want to show the right thing so I can talk about it. Well, this is a little different picture, but should be okay. Then that ESP home, it's ESP home thing that I was showing. It's essentially a suite of programs that you can use to it writes the programs that actually go on to the ESP32 to any of these ESP devices, and you configure it just using YAML, and then somebody, a zillion times smarter than I am, actually Home Assistant owns it now. They bought the intellectual property, wrote the program that reads the configuration and then writes the code that can actually run on these small devices and talk to Home Assistant over the API, and then compile it and actually load it up over Wi-Fi. Did that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not. Sometimes I don't expect it.
Yeah, the kiosk is really just like
it's actually more than an IDE. And the reason I say that, so I'm glad you mentioned it. The reason I say that is because if we look at the HVAC controller, this isn't source code, right? There's no ifs, ands in here. All this does is declare how it's supposed to work, and then it goes off and writes the code that I've never even looked at. Now, you could write your own code to run on the ESP, and I have. Write your own code to run on the ESP32, but this is so easy. Because then what happens is if I go into Home Assistant there, see, I'm not used to the side screen. If I go into Home Assistant's configuration and I look for the devices that are integrated via ESP Home, I get all sorts of things, but among the things I get is that's what I get for using different cases. That's bad. Give me a sec. Then I just get all these switches in ESP Home to turn on the backlight, to turn on the cooling relay, to turn on the fan relay, to turn on the heat relay without any code. It just discovers it and it works. And so I could actually, I'm not even kidding. If I click this, the fan for my furnace just started up. But obviously, I usually do it programmatically. But if I want to, I can just come in and turn it on. In fact, I can show you in my dashboard.
one question here. Figure was
So ESP Home doesn't expose any UI in general. There's if you have an ESP device with a display and buttons on it, there might be an exception, but assume it's the kind that I just showed, tabs no UI on it. All of the UI is then through Home Assistant. So ESP Home is just an add-on to Home Assistant. And then, but it connects to Home Assistant. And just now when I showed you those virtual switches, That's the most basic UI. Actually, let me have you sit here because that camera behind you is will be looking at you. Hi, I'm Kevin.
Hey, I'm Ellen.
Ellen, nice to meet you. It's okay. Welcome. Go ahead. Yeah. So think of Home Assistant as the manager for your home, and ESP Home is one of many plugins to it.
But basically, your system is automated. Most of the time, you don't have to interact with it.
Correct.
But if you want to interact with somebody, Home Assistant.
Yes. Precisely correct. And then to drive home your point, this card on my dashboard is if you go into my home, there is no way to adjust the heat without using this screen. So if you're my girlfriend, you don't know how to change the temperature in the house and you get frustrated with your boyfriend. Well, she does.
Browser.
This is a browser interface into Home Assistant, but this is the UI. This is also in the hall. So upstairs in the hallway, I don't have a camera there. Upstairs in the hallway where the thermostat used to be is now an iPad, displaying exactly what you see here, except this is bigger. But also on my phone, because you just saw the app, on my phone here, on my watch, I can adjust the temperature whenever I want to do. But the real magic is that I won't get into it because I'll be here till Tuesday. But the house knows. So, for example, right here you see the house is in away mode. It knows I'm not there. I didn't tell it that. It knows where my cell phone is. So it says, okay, Kevin's cell phone isn't within a mile of my house. Kevin's not home. Even more to the point, since I am at work, it knows I am at work. And therefore it knows I'm not going to be home for at least an hour. And so it sets the temperature all the way down to 55. As it sees that I'm driving home, it will slowly bring up the temperature. And all of this is, again, I could do a whole class in this, but all of this is a bunch of things with a scheduling system and some custom code, such that when it's time to wake up and I'm home, it'll turn on the heat so that by the time I wake up, it's not 55 anymore. Well, it's actually 64 in the living room, 67 in the bedroom right now.
Just out of curiosity, how many ESP32 are ESPs are you have in the house?
Well, I see, that's an easy answer. So they're all doing different things though. The Bluetooth proxies, that's the coolest new thing is, this is less than a year old, this technology. ESP32s have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, which means they can be a bridge between Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. And there's a bunch of BLE, Bluetooth Low Energy. I'll be happy to send you anything you'd like. You're welcome to take a picture too.
That's something I want to research.
So what I use it for is I have some Bluetooth thermometers throughout the house with little displays on them, and I have two Bluetooth proxies, one in the living room, one in the kitchen, one in the bedroom, that any Bluetooth device can proxy through. And so there are more temperature sensors than there are Bluetooth proxies because you can have multiple devices hanging off one. In fact, in the kitchen, I have one in the kitchen, just like on the cabinets, and I have two, one in the freezer, one in the fridge. So I know the temperature in the freezer and in the fridge, and I can issue an alarm if something bad happens, if it gets too warm in one of those places. I get a couple of things. I'll have to see if I can demo the one I want to. I get a notification on the app. I get a badge at the top of. I'm going to need more windows soon. I get these, but a red one. As a matter of fact, here's a cool thing I can show you. Wait, let's finish what I was doing, and then we'll come back. See, I told you I get off topic. So two Bluetooth proxies, two cheap cameras. Probably $15. An ESP32 has an optional camera. It absolutely sucks, but I mean, how much does it suck? I mean, it's not great. It's not great, but let's see. Well, you know what? It's okay. So there's my basement one. It's dark in the basement. So hang on a sec. This is what computers. this is what computers are for. We will, whoops, that's the wrong button. We will turn on the lights in the basement. Turn off the light in the hallway, please. So that's an ESP32 camera. Is there anything to write home about? No. Is it enough to see that everything's working? Yeah. This one here is actually pointing at the relay controller for the furnace so that I can see if it's working. Ask me why. So to finish answering ESP2 questions, but this is the fireplace temperature sensor. That is an ESP32. I didn't realize I'd cut that over. The garage door is the remote control to open the garage door and to sense if the garage door is open or not. HVAC 01 is the one I was talking about before, that controls the heating system. HVAC humidifier is a separate relay to turn the humidifier on and off. Outside environment 02 is just a temperature probe on my porch, so I know what the temperature is outside. Relay 01 is a new thing I'm working on. Sump monitor is cool. It monitors the level of the sump pump, I think in either 2 or 3 places, to say is it above the sump pump, which would be bad because the sump pump's broken. Then is it above the emergency sump pump, which is because I have 2 sump pumps in there, and then has it spilled onto the floor, all of which are bad and would issue all those same alarms like we were talking about before. Water cop is a device that goes on the main water line that has a actuator in it that can open and close my water main. And certain events, like if it detects water, if the sump monitor says the water is high on the floor, maybe a water main broke, maybe a water pipe broke, so turn off the water. Or if it gets to be below 40 degrees downstairs, I'm in danger of a freeze situation, turn off the water. Or if there's quite a few leak detectors around the house for like the washing machine, those flexi hoses that can break, because I'm too lazy to turn off the valve, or behind the toilets, and any of those things where it might break, I can detect a water leak and shut down the house, or I can just push a button and shut it down remotely. Then there was a time I was in the shower and I thought there was a leak, but we're not talking about that right now.
I was going to say something like, "You damn kids are taking too long in the shower."
Funny you should ask that. Number one, I don't have kids, which is probably good given my house, but I have another device. It's actually in parallel, and it's actually in Home Assistant 2. It is Flow by Moen, and that one, rather than relays, is an internet connected device. And it does measure how much water you're using, and it does say, your water usage at this time of day is abnormal. Sends me a message, and actually makes a phone call, and if I don't respond to them, it turns off the water. So note to self, if the girlfriend wants to take a long shower, turn it off first. Ask me how I know. The joys of home automation. So the answer to your question is what? 12 ESPs at the moment, and a pile of other ones downstairs every time I get them. So one of the ESPs is Garage 01 or whatever it was. So we will, my neighbors, they hate it when I do presentations. So this light, the garage door just lit up to say it's open. And to prove that that's true, the cameras are very slow. But to prove that that's true, and then I don't know if you folks online are going to be able to see this, but you guys, can you see this at all? Probably
Yes.
not. Oh, good. Okay. So sorry, guys. This is, I promise we'll get back to Python because this is all written in Python. This is my MagicMirror. There are 4 of these throughout the house there that I have had in storage. And I was like, I know what I'll do. I'll show it to the guys at the Python. Among things that it's displaying is the garage is open. And that, here, I'll prove it. If I go back here and close the garage door, it'll take a moment, but once the garage door comes down and the sensor clears, and 50-50 chance my phone rings with a lady across the street going, "What are you doing? Your garage door is open." Once the garage door closes, which hopefully it will do, so the contact sensor sees it. Sorry, the contact sensor, you can't see it, but it's down in the corner there. Knows that your garage door is closed, it'll do its thing. The other thing that happened, you can't see any of this, but throughout the house, I have a lot of switches by a company called Innovelli. Really expensive. They're Z-Wave switches, which is a home automation standard. And they have these LEDs on them. And if the house knows that I'm away and that the garage door is open, it goes into alarm and you get little blinking red lights all over the house, which is awesome. Or if it's nighttime, which is awesome. If I go to close the garage door, if I go to bed and I tell the house, my Alexa will let me say, "Alexa, good night." It'll switch to night mode. If it knows the garage door is still open, all these red lights start blinking, and the Alexa in my house says, "Attention, the garage door is open." And it only works in night mode. It's too bad. Well, wait, hang on a sec here. So we're going to, instead of being in away mode, we're going to switch the house to night mode. Not sure that that's the right mode. Let's find out. So now we're in night mode. So a couple things happened. The badges at the top changed to say night mode. The house mode just changed to night. And I would think, I haven't tested this yet, so forgive me. This is fairly new code. But I would think that once the garage door opens, no, didn't do it. Yeah, it says it's open. I was hoping I'm supposed to get an alert. Well, supposed to get an alert here because what I do is when there's something wrong, the messages will pop up here, like the garage door is open or something like that.
You do have an on the bell. Could that be it?
Say that again, please.
You do have an alert on the bell on the bottom left. You have one notification.
Oh, yes, that's just a home assistant system notification about devices.
Oh,
Yep.
Gotcha.
So on the screen I'm presenting, the garage door notice is on, but all of those are normal. They're supposed to, there is, and I'm just forgetting how I built it. There's a mode. That's weird. I got to figure out what I'm doing wrong, but somewhere in all this, I must not have done what I thought I did. It has the ability to display alerts here. It should have done it in evening mode too, though. Let's see if I can do it different. Here's another one I can try. Except I don't know if I can. I bet I don't. All right, I'm not going to waste your time, but essentially, suffice it to say that it can display various notifications here. If there are known problems, but it's going to take me a while to simulate one. I don't want to waste your time. Some of it, yes. Exactly correct. Named it after her. All right, so let me turn off these lights again. And did I leave the garage door open? Because I should really close it because I will get a phone call. About my garage door?
No, about my garage.
Oh, well, so
You don't get a phone call, you just get somebody coming in and it's taking all your shit. Oh, yeah.
honestly, I built a lot of this because I was that guy who left his garage door open at night. So while we're here, and then we'll transition into some of the code here. There are throughout the house, there are lots of temperature sensors. There they are. And so I display a couple of them on here, sort of the most important ones. And then this is just displaying that the living room is 65 degrees and the set point is 62, which comes from here, 65 in the house, set point 62. So if I adjust the set point with any luck, it'll adjust here, 63. Garage door system mode. I have solar panels and I just thought it was cool. So I have this device called an iota watt. If you ever want to talk about monitoring your electricity usage, iota watt is your key, or ask Josh to remind me and I'll give you the details. This very cool device with 10 CT clamps on it, current transformer clamps. You can put around the wires in your panel, including the mains, in my case, including the solar. And so I always know how much I'm generating, how much I'm using. And I'm not displaying it here, but I know things like how much current is my electric car charger using, how much current are my computers using. And in fact, I use that because I actually, not anymore, but in the olden days, I had a bunch of innovatives like backups at my house. And so I used the sensors there to ask our president, would it be fair for me to expense some of my, in those days we did. So I can measure a lot of stuff about my power utilization. It's not working perfectly right now, but this is a kind of a cool representation of what I'm using 0.8 kilowatts, so 800 watts that I'm bringing in from the electric company. 0.8 of it is going to the house, another 0.1 of it, these are just rounding errors, goes to my server room, which is not bad. Oh no, this isn't my server room. This is my main desktop computer / gaming rig. So I'm not using much power right now, but if I were home, I might be, because the screens are on. And then this is how much electricity the solar panels are generating. Obviously, it's nighttime, pretty boring. And how much power the car charger is using, but the car's not home. This other side is not working. This is supposed to be cumulative, but they changed something, and that doesn't work, and it's fix it. So, questions. Sorry, I'm ending.
Oh, the temperature of the freezer. How do you know that? Is it a special refrigerator, or does it have some kind of sensor that you're able to plug in?
So do you remember the Bluetooth proxy?
Yeah.
So the Bluetooth proxy is behind my microwave, which is 6 or 7 feet from the refrigerator and freezer. They're just Bluetooth temperature transmitters. So they're square doodads, pretty close. And I specifically looked for something that people said they had success with in the freezer and fridge, because you're right. Wi-Fi inside the freezer and fridge would not work. I tried it. Plus the batteries, the Wi-Fi takes a lot of battery compared to Bluetooth. But these guys are working very well in the fridge, although I do occasionally lose communication with them. But if you're interested in a monitor for that, again, just shoot me an email and I'll tell you exactly what I'm using. Yep. Exactly, because you're never down there and you don't notice. Yep. And so if you're going to do that, my suggestion is you have to monitor for not only the temperature, but you have to monitor for when was the last update I received. And if it's been more than, you pick it, an hour, 6 hours, 12 hours, you got to issue an alarm for that too, because that could be the battery's dead, or in my case, if you even move it inside the fridge, the signal gets worse. So someone's in there packing away stuff. So go ahead.
Yeah, that's how you keep it, don't freezer one from the battery.
Again, I did a bunch of research online. I've been very impressed. I've had it for 6 months. I've not replaced the battery yet. It just works. I don't know if it's a battery that's rated for 0 degrees Fahrenheit or what it is, but it works like a champ. Funny you should ask. I just found a deal on Zigbee, which is yet another home automation protocol. Of course, I have them all because I'm crazy. Sensors, so they're in a box, but I haven't used them yet. I live alone, so there's not a lot of a need for it, but I'm interested in learning about it. I do not. I did, but I don't think I had Home Assistant when I had the cat. So the cat was a cat I cared for another person. I'm not actually a cat person, so I won't be getting another one unless another friend needs me to take care of their cat. I love the questions. That's the most fun part. Anything else? All right, let's actually do some Python.
Wait, hold on.
Go ahead. Yeah. Okay, so I wrote. I'm sorry, I should have told you what's in here is a Raspberry Pi, and we're about to log into it. I did not build. I'm not not good at the woodworking. Here's what I've always said about myself in terms of doing work on the house. I don't want to build anything that someone's going to see in terms of the woodwork. I'm not good at this. So I bought this. It's actually relatively cheap. I bought it from, I could find out for you. I bought it, I think, either from Amazon or directly from the company who makes it.
I had a program that sold those already with the Raspberry Pi.
Exactly. And that may have used pre-existing Linux software, MagicMirror software that ran under X Windows or whatever is Wayland. And I didn't like it, so I wrote my own. So this is my Raspberry Pi shoved here. And in fact, this particular one, I cut some wires and rewired it because the screen wasn't bright enough. So I changed it so the Raspberry Pi could control the brightness of the screen. So yeah, that's, and all that's happening here, if you know Raspberry Pi, so they have an HDMI connector. So it's just HDMI to a board that was already here when I bought it. The backlight came with it. I just did just some rewire. These are the cheap ones. They make metal ones that are nicer, but they're more expensive. And when I say cheap, unfortunately, it's probably 100, 150 bucks, and then like 300 bucks for the good looking ones. But it's just working. I have, this is my third of this model. I have a more expensive one in the kitchen that looks nice, the metal one. And then I have one upstairs that just sits on the nightstand. It's a little one. That's a touch screen, but I haven't written a program to take it. It's not much of a program. I just proved it up before. So, all that said, you guys are gonna get tired of listening to me. Instances of Visual Studio going here. Okay, so first of all, be kind. This program is one of those things that's just grown. So it is 12,000. Oh. Thank you for telling me. All right, hang on a sec while I get the presentation working again. Thank you for telling me. So this is a 1,200 line program. I keep wanting to rewrite it, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. So clearly we're not going to go through every little thing, but when it starts, entry. Actually, we should probably just talk a little about how it works. So I use a library called, I think it's called Pillow or PIL. Exactly. PIL, which I believe is, I think the actual package name is Pillow. And what I do, it's turned out to be more complicated than I thought it was going to be. What I do is I do all this work to create a file. Maybe it's a PNG, or I forget exactly what it is, but it's some sort of graphics file. And then I have another program that I modified. I didn't write it myself, written in C, that actually displays the file directly to the frame buffer of the video card in the Raspberry Pi. I don't actually understand how it works, so I just used their stuff. And that's if anyone is really good with frame buffers, let me know, because the thing is that if I have this in landscape mode, I can write to it directly from Python. But as soon as I move it to portrait mode, which is what looks good on the wall, the frame buffer module gets confused and doesn't work. So I can't write to it directly from Python. That's why I have to have an intermediate step. So send me an email if you're an expert at frame buffers, because I couldn't find anybody who was. But anyway, so what I do is I start off. Okay, I start off by making a whole bunch of these calls to has get state, which is Hass is a module I wrote. that all it does is makes a call into Home Assistant. So please, nobody write down my secret token, take over my computer. So it's gonna take a while to write. There you go. Take the screenshot. Thanks. I'm not real worried about it. Actually, there's more to the right, and I just won't display it. In fact, it's not on the internet anyway. So with that token and knowing the URL of the Home Assistant API, I can make this get state call, which will, not surprisingly, return the state of an entity. So there's a couple of simple ways to do it. Is if I make a call to the is the garage door open sensor, I'll get, I don't think it's true, I think it's off or on or something like that. Or if I make a call to the temperature sensor in the living room, I'll get the temperature. And that's exactly what's happening here. And all of that is to get the, I got some test code here, is to get the initial state. So there's not, that's it. This is the call that matters. There's some other stuff happening here, but this is the call that matters that I make a zillion times to get each entity at startup. So I populate a dictionary just because it's easier than, well, I think I was learning dictionaries when I wrote this thing. I have to handle things like the sensor for solar is offline right now, so I'll get an error when I try to convert unavailable to an integer. So certain things I have to wrap up in a try block. I don't wrap up everything in a try block though, because I kind of want it to blow up if certain things fail. I want to see what's wrong. To know when it blows up. Yeah, exactly.
Fail loud and fail hard.
Precisely. It's funny you say that because before you guys got here, I was having a problem with something and it was masking it because of the try block, because it just said that didn't work. Okay. Some fun things I'm doing. So I can't help talking about Home Assistant because I love it so much, but Home Assistant has so many integrations, which I'll just give you a quick idea of. It's not to read them. These are just a handful of all of the things that Home Assistant can integrate with, which is what's so cool about Home Assistant. You think I own stock, except it's a private company. When I buy something, all I have to do is make sure it's compatible with Home Assistant. I don't have to make sure it's compatible with Alexa. I don't have to make sure it's compatible with Google. I don't have to make sure it's compatible with Apple HomeKit. There's so many competing ecosystems out there that if you try to pick one, you're going to be, and you're a nerd like we are. Sorry, hope you're all nerds. It's frustrating because you want the cool stuff that you want. Home Assistant brings them all together. Why was I saying this? Oh, so among the many integrations that I have are an integration with my Tesla. And say what you will about Elon Musk, he's sometimes not my favorite person. So this is my dad's car, my dad's Tesla. He named it Electric Blue. My car is named Terra. And it's bringing in all this data about my car, including where it is. I don't think I have geocode here, but is it at least I know, is it home? Is it at the office? That sort of thing. Is the trunk open? Is it charging? Does it have a software update available? All kinds of stuff. So anyway, well, and just to kind of give you a clue again about Home Assistant, all these interfaces. For example, the Xiaomi BLE, those are some of the temperature sensors. Tuya is some of the lights. And this is only a tiny sampling of the zillions of integrations they have out there. And the crazy thing is they work. They're working hard to make Home Assistant useful for us, but also, like, my dad actually found it innovative. So he's an IT guy, but he's not a tinkerer. He's not a home automation guy. And he can kind of use this stuff. Anyway. So a lot. He's also 73 years old, so I get a lot of emails about things that aren't working, but it's so I get all these things, but there are so many of these states that polling every minute or every 30 seconds, but I want this thing to update quickly, is not feasible. So I'm like, well, there's got to be a better way. Of course there was. So I'll show you the code behind this in a second, but essentially I subscribe to events from Home Assistant. So every time something changes, so if you look at the bottom half of my Visual Studio Code environment there, it's not showing every single change, it's showing every single change that I declare as interesting. I realize this code is awful. I will be rewriting it one of these days, but it's as simple as, if the change is something I care about, then update the display dictionary and mark it as an interesting change. The reason I hate this is because first I do all the initial calls, then I write it. So I've got everything in there twice, which is awful. I got to abstract that out, but it works. And as I say, I didn't know how to do events. I started off as a VB and a C# programmer, so learning events in Python took me a while. Made my brain hurt. So how does that work? So over here is the Home Assistant WebSockets interface, and that essentially just uses Python's async IO and async WS, async WebSockets, to establish a connection to the WebSocket and subscribe to events. By here, I sense a JSON packet that says I want to subscribe to events, and then just sit here waiting for a message to be available. And if the message is none, it means we lost the connection. And then I parse it. Well, Python parses it a little bit. And at some point, I must raise an event, I assume. Events.on. So I raise this on change event, which then the other program can see. So again, Home Assistant is so hackable, so customizable. And while we're here, I'll take a moment to plug another one of my favorite programs on earth. So this address that I'm going after for my Home Assistant interface, for my Home Assistant, is 199. That's not a real address. It looks like a publicly routable address, but it's not. Quite sure how they get away with that. There's a company called Tailscale that lets you establish your own flat VPN networks, which essentially means that all of my computers that are on Tailscale can communicate with each other directly without going through a hub, without going through a central server. And to me, the most amazing thing about it is when I can put this address, this 100 address, in all of my machines, both this one that you're looking at right now and the devices at home. And it's smart enough that when I bring this back home with that same address in there, it'll keep working without routing it out to the internet. Stays local. I don't know how they do it, but I've tested it and it works. And they handle, you can actually get it for free. I pay them because I just think it's so amazing what they offer. And you know, most VPNs, you're handling your keys. It's based on WireGuard, but you're handling your own keys and you're doing all kinds of garbage. They just do it for you. Yes, I'm giving away a little control, but it just works. In fact, downstairs, if we want to, well, they're not on anymore, but downstairs it's 9 Raspberry Pis displaying our corporate dashboards. And I put all those Pis in, I can manage them all from anywhere on Earth by using this Tailscale. But that's why this device is working now, even though I'm not at home. And why I'm not too worried about my key being out, because you need to be on my Tailscale network for it to work. So after this is the code that actually makes the picture. So we'll be done with it this minute. So once the display dict is populated, I call refresh display if there's something interesting to change, and I clear the display. And then really I just go through here making a bunch of decisions. But if on the screen here in the top left is the time. So all I do is figure out the time from time format. I say draw.text, and then so X is obviously this dimension, Y is this dimension. I just remember where I was, incrementing it appropriately and drawing the text where I want it, drawing a line on the screen to make it look nice. if anyone's heard of Font Awesome, it's a collection of fonts. Sorry, it's a collection of icons. So all the icons that are on here come from Font Awesome. They have a free version, they have a paid version. It's like $80 a year or something. To me, it's worth every penny. That's where I get all the icons from. That's a whole another story. I can set the sizes. As I say, I can draw the pictures. And so I just make a bunch of decisions. Do I know the temperature? If I do, show it. If not, don't show it. I make decisions like I want to show an icon. I show a wind icon if the fan is on. I show a snowflake icon if the air conditioner's on. I show a fire icon if the heat's on. And then I color it. So do I want it to be white? Do I want it to be blue? Do I want it to be crimson? Does everybody remember the pleasure of the wildfires in Canada coming down and making our breathing fun? I got an integration called AQI, the Air Quality Index, and I displayed it on here, and then I colored it. Now that it's not so bad, I only display it if it's worse than 50, so it's not on the screen right now. But I mean, that was kind of like, do I want to go for a bike ride now? If it's 150, probably not. Ask questions as I go through this if you have any.
So using like air now.
Exactly right. Yep, the air now AQI, precisely. And so again, it's a very interesting to talk about Home Assistant. I could have written in Python or whatever my own program to call into their API, which I actually did, and because I didn't realize it was there. But then, oh, Home Assistant has an integration? Great. I'll call into it, and then from Python, I'll just access what's already there. Here's an interesting one. This looks at so my dehumidifier in the basement is a dumb dehumidifier. There's no connectivity to it. But I plugged it into a smart plug. It reports its electrical utilization. So here I say, if that plug is showing that it's using more than 100 watts, the dehumidifier is on, and I turn on an indicator there to say the dehumidifier is on. So I kind of like to record how long it's running. It's has nothing to do with Python, so I probably won't get into it tonight, but Home Assistant has a huge amount of history. So you can see graphs and everything about what the house has been doing. Okay, so we'll just kind of skip some of this stuff because I don't want to bore you to tears. I make a call. I actually do this part myself. I make a call out to NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric something. That's where the weather report comes from that was on the screen. And so I make some decisions here, and it's kind of cool that I can just display the weather report. But even more importantly, I look for weather alerts up here. So if there's a weather alert, then I post in the upper right-hand side a weather alert. And then there could be more than one, but down at the bottom, I'll put whatever the first one in the array is that I got back from NOAA, and the rest is like, yeah, go yourself if you want to find out. Actually, I do even better than that. If there's only one alert, I'll put in the upper right-hand corner what it is: flood, rain, snow, whatever. In Buffalo and Rochester, we get all that fun stuff. And then, okay, so here I check for a whole bunch of conditions, and if they exist, I post a message in either crimson or yellow or blue, probably. If they're about messages. So the fireplace got too hot. The water's off. There's two systems for the water, like I mentioned. The garage. Oh, so here's my problem. The garage door message only comes up after 10 o'clock at night or before 5 a.m. I did it by time, not by house status. That was my mistake. And well, I did it because I remember what I was doing now is at 10 o'clock, I'm probably not going out anymore, so go close the damn door, even though it's not nice. I'm gonna add to that though. I'll add a red message for if the house is in night mode or away mode or evening mode to say, really go close the garage door. Okay, so I was just talking about, yeah, you can tell I hate this, right? I was talking about the HVAC, the dehumidifier. So I do the same thing. That's a little fancier. What I do there is the washing machine and the dryer, they have cycles, and the their utilization can fall way down for a while. So it's a combination of how much power am I using and for how long have I been using it. So essentially the rule is, let's assume they're the same for both of them, if they are. If the washing machine has been above X watts for 2 minutes, I think is my rule, then go to the washing machine is on. So then it'll actually, you won't get a message on here for that, but you'll get a badge on the screen for that. But then whenever the washing machine transitions from on to off, that sets another flag that says you need to go empty the washing machine. And then the dryer does the same thing, but there's a twist. If the washing machine says you need to empty, you need to move everything to the dryer, right? That's the next step. Then once the dryer starts, it assumes I've emptied the washing machine and it turns off that alarm. And then I have to tell it, I actually have a button on the front of the dryer to say, I have emptied the dryer. And then Alexa says, dryer acknowledgement received. Actually, dryer acknowledgement received. She's a girl, Alexa. So that's all that is. And then on here, so I had the badges, which is great, but they sometimes, because I always forget the laundry. So they weren't in my face, so I added it to here to say, go do the laundry, because these are more in my face. So you can do a lot with devices that aren't smart just by detecting their power utilization. You can make a lot of decisions based on that. Exactly correct. So if you're so washing machines, heaters, anything with a high current draw, you gotta be careful with, because you can't just get a cheapo Zigbee or Z-Wave device, because either it will say overcurrent and turn itself off, or it will catch fire. It's bad. So keep the smoke in. So these have turned. That is not it. I tend to buy things in case I need them. Why? That is unfortunate. I think it's just Amazon messing with me. What the heck? Okay, sorry. These are what I've bought, but when I click on Amazon's taking me to a different product, which is annoying. But these are fantastic. I don't know what's up with Amazon right now, but you can see how many I bought. So all of my high energy devices use this, and so you can do two things with it. You can use it to report electrical utilization, and you can actually turn on and off the device. So in the case of like the washing machine or the dryer, I never turn them on and off because I wouldn't want to confuse the actual washer and dryer. In the case of, so I have an electric heater in my office, and I have a tendency to forget that it's on and go to bed. Ask me how much that cost. So I set that up to do two things. One is to give me an icon when the heater's running, because that's easy to tell, because that's so much power it's using. But more importantly, whenever the house goes into away mode or night mode or evening mode, it cuts power to that heater so that I can't leave it on. That's made a big difference. But so just whatever you get, make sure that it can handle whatever the amperage of whatever you're controlling is. And Amazon is not amusing me to get out, because these. Yes, the dryer will be 220 if it's not a gas dryer. And yes, you need it, but you can get 220 volt switches.
Y'all can buy a brand new dryer, like we just got a new washer.
Yeah,
Essentially a push notification when it's done, it's amazing.
In fact, and Home Assistant, if it happens to be LG, Home Assistant has an LG integration.
Oh,
My washer is not smart. My dryer is new, but I didn't like the integration, so I didn't. Usually a switch that looks like this won't have enough amperage. And I just, sorry, I can't show you the right one, but I have a bunch at home, so if you want me to look up the part number, I can. And my 3D printer is monitored by the system. So if something goes wrong with it, I'll get a notification. Well, if it knows something's wrong with it, I'll get a notification here. I'll go look at it. If you're into 3D printing, I love 3D printing. I'll tell you what I think the best printer in the world is.
Also now.
Bamboo lead. Bamboo X1 carbon is my favorite. It is. I came from a pile of other printers that are literally now in a pile downstairs. I don't use them anymore. The bamboo is just, it works 19 out of 20 times. And if you've done any other 3D printing, you know that's amazing. Here's this is TPU, so it's kind of a weird thing, but I printed that on there. Love it. And then the last thing, if you saw it on the screen, is I grabbed from NOAA the last satellite image of the Earth, of North America, and of this region, like this area. Yeah, I'm very happy with that. And then I just cycle through those as long as there's not an error message, and I just think it's pretty. I just think it looks nice on the screen. But it's live. I mean, not immediate, but it's recent. Yeah, as live as you can get without the government wanting to have a word with you. And again, all free. I just downloaded it from NOAA. So, questions on that? Because I won't take you any deeper unless something you want to see on this. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Well,
allowing you to, does tail scale pick up when you're outside of the house?
what do you mean by pickup?
Can you communicate with you're obviously communicating with this device now. Is it still on tail scale when it's here?
Oh yeah, it's on tail right now. That's the only way it can communicate.
So
if tail weren't running, this wouldn't work.
So what you were saying before was if the devices are all, then the traffic stays.
Yes, which to me is black magic. Well, it's not exposed to the internet. Most definitely. Yes. Right. Yeah, no, you're right. Otherwise, what am I doing? Yes. Yes, correct. So the thing that actually made Josh invite me tonight is I asked, what did you say? Exactly. So I recently switched teams here at Innovative, and Josh runs an open engineering hours meeting, and very few people tend to show up. But since I had just switched teams, I figured I better show up to the first meeting. But Josh was there. It's all that matters. And Josh has always been my go-to Python guy, of course. And so I just said to him jokingly, "What do I get if I wrote a program that writes a program?" He goes, "You have to come to our meeting." And I said, "Okay." So all I did was used a slightly different interface to the Home Assistant API than the one I showed you before, and queried all entities. And then I sorted them by their class: automation, binary sensor, so on and so forth, light, group, whatever, and output this class file to make it so that when I'm writing code, instead of having to remember the entity name and type it correctly, because I can't. Sorry, I need. Oh yeah, yeah. There's a lot. All that in my house. No, these are all the sensors. Well, sensors is the wrong word. These are all the entities.
Oh, okay.
The reason the list is so it's not as crazy as it looks. The reason the list is so huge is because one electric outlet can expose, or one electric switch can expose multiple entities, meaning that, so one device can have multiple entities, meaning that one device will have the on-off switch, the voltage, the wattage, the temperature, the cumulative voltage. So one device could have 10 or 100 entities. That's why that list is so big. So in my other program, you only saw the ones I care about. Here you see all of them. But it does give you an idea of the number of things that you could, the data that is available to my house. So the example here, this one just, it's a silly example, but I have my firewall is, of course, a custom firewall based on pfSense. There's an integration for pfSense, so it knows if there's an update available for my firewall. And that's just one of a zillion sensors or switches or entities is the generic term. Here, but here's a perfect example. Here's the voltage that the electric dryer is seeing right now, for example. So all of that was only so that I could do so Home Assistant has a built-in Visual Studio Code editor, which is awesome, which would work better when I find it. So all of that was just so that when I needed to make a call to like self.turn off he.switch, it would know about it, dot whatever it is, get some IntelliSense. Because otherwise it was quoted strings every time, which, as you can imagine, I got wrong every single time I had to key it in. Because as you can see, all that's happening over here is it's really dumb. All it is a variable name that essentially does the string representation of that variable, sometimes with a little bit of massaging, because you can't have an ampersand in a variable or a percent sign or other things that made Python bad. What did you call it? Code smell.
Yeah. Bad code.
Okay. Oh, bad code. Oh, I thought it was like an application code smell.
Code smell is like when you see patterns that are not necessarily
An anti-pattern. Yes.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
The term of art for that in Swift is stringly typed code.
Yeah.
Stringly typed. I got it. So, all brilliant Python people, I need you. I need a solution to my problem. So as you can see, I have a class has entities. Then I have classes within has entities called automation, binary sensor, so on, and light and some other ones. Here's my problem. I can say, please let this demo work. I can say HE Home Assistant entities dot automation, or I can't say automation. What the heck? No, it should work. HE dot. Let's try. I have this problem sometimes. I think IntelliSense on the.
So how do you call it?
That's just up at the top. That's what I aliased it as from has entity. See, Josh, that's why HE should work. Sorry, I do have this thing with IntelliSense. Here, I got it now. HE dot switch dot. I don't even know of any. Let's see if I can get it working. Sorry, you want to see the import again? I thought maybe my file was too long. Okay, this demo was going terrible. HE group usually works. It is not working. Just with this. In the same directory, they're right here. So I'm not going to. I want to ask my question. I can't ask it without. Yeah, it's IntelliSense gets way behind on the server. Here we go. HE dot. Sorry, one sec. HE dot group dot lights. All that's a group. My problem is that I can also say HE dot group or dot. See I don't know if this is going to be able to say this. Oh, okay. I can also just as well I can say HE dot group dot amcrest tamper detection. The problem is Amcrest tamper detection is not a group, it's a binary sensor. And that's because all the variables in Python are global. I'm not making sense. It's IntelliSense isn't subsetting it by classes. It lets me see all the variables because they're all global. There's no scoping in Python.
Well, no, so you do have.
That's why-
something in terms of modules and in terms of
Oh, good.
should be scope to.
That's what I thought too, but it's not. See?
So something you could do is instead of create classes, create files
Oh,
and just do a bunch of variables in each file. A file is a module.
yes. And that will keep it from doing that.
Name dot variable.
So if I had what you're saying is an automation file, a binary sensor file, I'd have to do an import for each file at the top, but it's fine. Okay,
Well, you can
that's exactly what I wanted to know.
you actually make the structure by having a entity folder
With-
and a list of files in it that you can import the folder.
You can import a folder.
Yes.
See, this is why I'm here. Okay,
Those import patterns
yes,
are just directory.
yes, but it can end with a folder name instead of a file name.
You don't want to use the class functionality.
Right, I don't really care. You're right. You're right.
You want the namespace.
Exactly, the namespace. Exactly. All right.
Just get rid of the class in file, which I think you should find everything to.
Because they're so big. Too. It's so big. It's
would probably help the help.
funny because I was just Sunday. I was getting ready for this meeting, and I was like, "Oh crap! None of this works." I'm like, "Well, I'm going to ask the group." Good, thank you. And about the length of the file, what you don't know is that every entity, so each of those individual entities, can have X attributes. And the first go with this, wrote all the attributes afterwards, and it was about 50,000 lines long, and that really screwed up IntelliSense. So, thank you. All right, that's what I'm going to do. Okay, well, and honestly, I did it for fun. I don't really need them, but it's cool.
Yeah, I don't think you need it, but there's also the concept of you have the concept of
Yes.
underscore.
Dunder, someone taught me. Yes,
Yes.
you taught me, I guess.
So if you do a dunder init file, so dunder
I actually learned that for something I was doing.
in the folder, it makes it more of a true module. I
You
don't
mean a file called Dunder?
yes. The file name is dunder init. So
And that would init,
double underscore init double underscore dot file.
and that would init, and that's an init for everything in that folder.
So that is
Oh.
the and I'm not quite sure what the difference of adding it versus not. Because it makes it a package, but what is it by you? Like you still, whether it's there or not, you're still accessing the things within it with that folder. No, there are things that you can't do. I remember, I don't remember what I was doing. Convert it to package. Okay. So I was able to do some, I don't remember what. Like maybe you're using like a pip install or something like. Okay. Yeah, okay. But yes, it's something to look into more, but definitely the folder structure is your module. That is your name.
I want you all to know that I mean, it's probably 4 people here today because you weren't here.
Yeah.
Everybody tried to help me, but
Yeah.
Thank you. This is awesome. This is awesome. I really appreciate it. Because again, I came from C#, Visual Studio. I'm used to not being able to compile if my variable names are on. And
Yeah.
I always misspell. So
Oh, yeah, it's actually boggles my mind that and partially yes, partially no, but the pushback that the Python community has had to study.
Right. Well, but again, we came, I don't know about you guys, but we came from the old world.
So many errors
Yes.
before runtime.
I always laughed at JavaScript, which they came along and wrote TypeScript on top of it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And you're the one who told me to use it.
Oh, yeah. It's fabulous.
Josh is my guru. Whatever I'm like, what do I do now? I always do. Awesome.
Programmers and pull together all the functions that we were using over and over again, copying and pasting each other's code. So I pulled it into a library, and first approach was to try to classes from it. Didn't work very well.
Because of namespace collisions? Or all kinds of
For a
reasons?
variety of reasons, it was overly complex.
Okay.
Having the Dunder and Net made it easy to install, so everybody could put it in their virtual environment. One extra little detail that helped it was a few places where it was good to have an object to encapsulate a lot of related pieces of information in one object, rather than building a full object. I used the name tuple, which is basically a fancy list, or a four-man's object. Very simple to create, very fast, very easy to access. Everybody's happy with that. Thank God it's not that.
I would never have thought of trying to import a whole folder. That's very interesting. Cool. Have I done everything I promised I'd do? Was there anything else on the list?
The only thing that I was looking for was an interesting presentation.
Well, people always say I'm nothing if not energetic. So I suppose I can show you, where is it? This is the pretty simple program that builds that list, that file. So now I'm just going to come back and clean it up. But essentially it's a call into Home Assistant to list all entities, and then just loop through that list, replacing bad things that it can't handle with them. Yeah, don't name a variable if. That makes Python very angry. That's me how I know. Wonder why that. Oh, I see. That's fine. Look at IntelliSense got confused there by the parentheses. That's cute. You didn't realize the one parenthesis was quoted. So yeah, so that's the story. If you're one of the folks here we talk about Home Assistant with, the other thing I would say is worth learning if you want to. Innovative is a big AWS shop, but I'm not trying to sell you anything. AWS IoT. If you want to kind of roll your own for some of this stuff, I did a lot. I changed over to Home Assistant, but a lot of my home automation used to be with AWS IoT. It's amazing, and it is so much better than the evil Azure people, because with AWS, they charge you like a tenth of a penny per device per month or something, and then they get you for everything, nickel and dime you for everything, but they don't have tiers, which means that you can have, I probably had 50 devices talking to AWS IoT for well under $1 a month. Whereas with Azure, when you go from like, there's some mention from like 25 to 26, all of a sudden you've got to buy a bigger plan. Amazon doesn't do any of that crap. AWS IoT, device shadows, Lambdas, you can do Python and AWS if you're not already familiar with it. Where home automation ends and you want to do other stuff, if you did happen to go downstairs and actually, since what'd you say?
Camera?
No. This is again over tail scale. This is one of nine dashboard. Well, actually, sorry, that's one. That right there is. Well, let's do that one. Not that it matters much. Assuming it's even online, it's not always awake. Yeah, never mind. We'll do that. But it's essentially one of these, and what I do. Where do I do this? Sorry. Didn't even think about this, but it should have been the first thing. It downloads these files from an FTP site and just runs a program. I don't remember the name of it, but it is kind of nice to know about it. Where is the start? And, there it is. Runs a program called FEH. Fey. It's awesome. If you have a Linux box and you want to display images in a slideshow, this FEH program just displays all the images in that directory. But what I really wanted to show you was the controller for all this. And it's going to be too much to go through it all, but it attaches to, it uses an API to talk to AWS IoT. And from AWS IoT, it gets a list of all of the files that this one's supposed to be displaying. And that way, when our CEO, which he does every 15 minutes, change his mind about what he wants displayed on which dashboard, I don't have to log into each one to change it. I reconfigure it in AWS, and all of the plumbing is done for me by AWS. It actually fires an event in my Python script when I change the config in the cloud, tells it which files to download, and then my Python script handles it from there. And the reason we did all this is we used to have these quite expensive little boxes to do these dashboards with a web interface and all this fun stuff. And the way that they worked is every time it wanted to display an image, even if the image hadn't changed, it downloaded it again. So as soon as we lost internet connectivity, which this building is one big Wi-Fi blockade. If you look at the walls, it's all concrete. It's the old Kodak building, if you're not familiar. And so we had, and we still do, have some Wi-Fi issues in parts of the building, and so we would end up with these blank screens when the Wi-Fi went flaky. And my CEO is a wonderful man, but if you know him, he does not like it when the screen is blank. And so instead, I just save it to disk and display it. And when I can update it, great. But if it's 15 minutes out of date, nobody knows. If it's a day out of date, I get an alarm. So where home automation ends and some business needs might crop up for any of you, I would, for this kind of thing, AWS IoT is awesome. Raspberry Pis work beautifully with it. If you actually want to get started and you're kind of confused where to get started, I'll be happy to share with you my library that simplifies the interface. I literally wrote the library and the tutorial to give to my father so he would stop calling me. Turns out to be very important to keep your dad who was an old IT guy. Once he retires, you either have to let your mother move in with you or give your dad something to do. So that's what I did. And I'm just kidding. I love my parents. But again, and if you're interested in that, I can show you a little more. That's actually what most of my job is AWS IoT. And I love it. Thank you. You're welcome. I assume you have my email on the meetup thing, or however, if you want my email, I'll give it to you. Here, I'll just put it on the screen in case you have any questions. So feel free to reach out. Just remind me that it's from I'll also spell it right. INNOVAT. Do you have any questions? If you want any of the files, I will certainly try to track it down. Most of what I showed you, there's nothing proprietary to this company in it, so almost everything I can share. Yeah, and thank you.
So this would be.
Oh Lord. Me talking a mile a minute on YouTube. Yay.
The email attached to it, or
Is it public? Probably not. Sorry, I should have asked before I did it.
Yeah, I had it. I think it's going through one of the videos.
That's right. I saw your. Yeah, that probably. I don't mind if anyone in the group has my email, but I don't want the world to. Thanks for asking. Thanks for coming. Thanks for letting me babble for an hour. I needed every minute of it. You're very welcome. Thanks for coming.
So what's next? Cameras. Good luck with those.
I mean,
I played with them and in fact, with one resolution, I had connectivity issues with Wi-Fi.
I did too. So, are you a heavy Wi-Fi guy? Do you know the difference between an ESS ID and a BSS ID? So ESS is the enterprise service set. So like the name of your Wi-Fi is your ESS ID. So like here it's innovative or whatever it is. The BSS ID is the name of the Wi-Fi network for an individual access point. So first of all, do you have more than one access point at home? Okay. It's exactly the trouble I ran into, is that it kept connecting to the wrong one. In somewhere in your configuration for your access points, what kind of access points? Okay, just if there were Euros, I would know how to do it. But somewhere in the config for the access points, it looks like a MAC ID. It may be a MAC ID. Is the BSS, the base service set for a given access point? Okay. So if you take the one that you know is closest to your camera, and when you set up the ESP32, instead of giving it your ESS ID, you give it the BSS ID to lock it to that one. I'm not. It's worked for me. So who knows?
Yeah. What routers under my desk? I was sitting at my desk and it
exactly
probably on the wrong one.
Probably. That's exactly what happened to me. I actually had the exact same thing happen to the ESP32 that runs my furnace, which was a big problem. And the access point is literally across the hall. So that was my fix for it, and it seemed to be good. I definitely had issues with the ESP32 cams. I'm trying to remember if that was the fix for those as well. But I think it was. I think it was that the Wi-Fi wasn't as good as you would have thought it was, because.
Oh, whatever. I'll have to go play with some more.
And there you go. So it could have been something like that. I had the feeling that in the olden days, before I found that, I would reboot. So I have Eros, which are a mesh network. I would reboot the whole network, and then it would work for a few days. And then I think that something dumb would happen. It would switch which one it was on. And by using the BSS ID, I've been able to lock it to the right one, which means that when I had an Eero break, and I got a new one, took me a week to figure out why the camera wouldn't work anymore. Yeah, take a look at that. That setting is somewhere buried in the access points configuration information. I don't believe you can change it, unlike a ESS ID, but I think it's there to find. You're welcome.
All access points, do they allow you to go in and, cause I have like Google Mesh.
So all access points have a BSS ID. Whether or not you can find it is a different question. Because like on your phone, you're thinking right now, I've never seen these things you're talking about. And that's because when your phone goes to look for something, it's like a hidden network. So you can't actually see it without either a special tool or probably in the details of your Google access. I don't have Google, but probably in the details of each individual Google access point will be. And if you can't find something called the BSS ID, just try the MAC address of the access point. And of course, the Wi-Fi MAC address, not because it's going to have two, right? Not the Wi-Fi MAC address, the Ethernet one. And of course, if there's more than one radio in there, like a B and a G, then you're going to have one BSS ID for each one. So make sure you get the right one. In the case of an ESP32, it's got to be the 2.4. We've had a lot of trouble here. So I set up all this stuff, all those lights, and we've had a terrible time getting consumer grade stuff to work on our enterprise wireless, and that's all about 2.4 versus 5. The fix turned out to be turning on my phone as a hotspot, leaving the building, setting it up down in the hallway. That's a nanoleaf. Those are nanoleafs. Those are LifeX beams. At least most of them are. The trouble is they like to break sometimes, and then there's just one. I tried to make it so you couldn't tell the difference because we couldn't get the power supplies for the beams anymore, and they kept breaking. LifeX Z strips, which are just naked LED strips. The thing is, the beams are really nice because they have a beautiful smoked glass smoked plexiglass look to them. It diffuses the light nicely.
Yeah.
And the other ones are just naked LEDs. And I think it's like the first one after
I see the brightness of it.
right. It's just not quite as soft as the other ones.
Yeah.
But the problem with the beams is that they come in 6 pieces, and each piece it's rigid. They can't.
They're not.
They won't bend, but even more to the point, when you try to bend them, they're just held. Each piece is held together with magnets against the electrical contacts, and when they come loose, they disconnect and they reset. And so I had a little bit of a fit when Justin bought all the beams, and he's like, "Can you set them up there?" I'm like, "No, it's curved." But we figured it out.
Or magnets.
Yeah. Beautiful. Okay, what's a canvas?
So it's the square one, these animals.
Okay.
Yeah. On all our TVs have golden light.
Yeah.
So,
I just got my first Gobi.
yeah. Golden is way more costly. I used to have a lot of Philips lights, but they're expensive, so I stopped buying.
Those jerks are making you get a login now to run your system.
And I had to get a it- it-
So if you're interested, Home Assistant with what is it? A Zigbee interface can control your Hue lights without your Philips Hue lights without a base station.
I'm gonna give it.
I haven't done it, but I've heard.
I thought it had a bunch of Gobi integrations, so and it's kind of annoying because there's certain things I want to happen, like when I'm gaming, I want to say one thing and make it done, but I gotta go into this specific app and switch everything. Then I gotta go to another app for the TV lights. Cumbersome.
So that's exactly where Home Assistant will be your friend, because you're right. If I had to have a separate, I mean, I do. If you look in my phone in my automation folder, there's 20 apps in there,
Yeah.
but I only need them for initial configuration. And Home Assistant is just so good about bringing those
I
together.
saw this on the meetup. I was like, all right,
Oh,
this is the one I have to come to because I need to figure out.
Now, if you want, you can actually put an application on your PC. Is it a Windows PC?
Nah.
Okay. You could, I think they've got one for the Mac. It's an app. It's a Mac app.
Yeah.
It will detect what your computer is doing. Like some computers will have like like the turbo or I know it's the wrong word now, but you can program it to know you're playing a game. Like its graphics card utilization goes through the roof, and automatically set those lights the way you want them. What I use it for, or what I actually don't, but what I set it up for friends with kids, is when you're working at home and you're on a Zoom call, to turn on a light in the other room to tell the kids don't come bother me, or to tell the spouse don't come bother me.
Not the on-air light.
That's pretty much.
Why I asked about the motion sensor, because I wanted it when, as soon as I walk in, it's certain times of the day is gaming time, and I wanted to set it back. I seen a couple. I think they are a big deal. Wait.
There's this thing that I just bought these. I haven't tried yet, but they had really good reviews. It was some weird name. What was it called? I want to say it was Seventh something. Hang on, let's just no, that's the wrong button. Where? Oh, did I forget to order these? No. I need a new filter very badly. Hang on a sec. Where? Yeah, I'm not even sure it's the right one. What was the name of those guys? Here it is. Third Reality of all things. So I bought these. I haven't played with them yet, but I bought some of their other products. Now these are Zigbee, so you've got to have some sort of Zigbee infrastructure in the house. But you can get one for Home Assistant if you want. If you do want one, just get one that works with Home Assistant. I didn't the first time. But they're cheap. $57 for 4 is not bad. Now these are motion detectors, not presence detectors, so you got to decide if that's what you want. But these guys actually joined Home Assistant's Works with Home Assistant program, which only a few have, and so I want to support them. So I bought a lot of their stuff. I just haven't used it all. Essentially, Zigbee is slightly less reliable, but much cheaper than Z-Wave. Z-Wave is quite a bit more expensive, but absolutely solid. And one of the reasons is Zigbee competes with your Wi-Fi spectrum, and Z-Wave is something totally different. And go ahead.
Is the difference between Z-Wave and Matter? Yeah.
Matter is a new standard that's actually based on the same radio as Zigbee.
Okay.
So Matter and Zigbee have some similarities, but the idea behind Matter is that it's going to be a universal specification that everybody's going to use, and like everything else, guess how well that's everybody's going to.
There are 14 different standards. We should really solve this problem.
By creating another one?
Yes, it's like, actually, there are 15.
You are absolutely right. And that's kind of where Home Assistant shines, is because what they want to do is anybody who, with an open API, and sometimes even without an open API, they'll integrate with, and then you just go with it. And I mean, as you can see, you can do anything with it. Home Assistant is literally the replacement for my custom C#, actually my custom VB.NET apps that I used to do all this in. And I can iterate so much faster now. Matter, I'd say give it another year before you specifically want to buy something for it. But if you have your choice between something that says it will eventually be Matter compatible versus not, get the one that says it is. But if there's something you want, it's not Matter, have fun.
So if you have like the home devices and like devices, how does that play?
In lots of different ways. The quick answer to that question. So I have Alexis. The first thing I'll tell you is that that's not the right button. I was all in on Alexas, but I've become very unhappy with the way they're advertising at me.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not a tinfoil hat guy. It's actually annoying when I say, Alexa, turn the lights on, and I have it set to go ding dong when the lights turn on. And then, did you know that you can use Alexa to find out the cost of chickens in China? Bad example. And I'm just like, I just told you to turn the effing lights on. So what happened is Amazon reduced their team because they're not making any money on Alexa. So they're not putting any effort into it, and they're just milking it for advertising.
They're going to start charging for one.
Have you?
So I wanted to know this really cool AI stuff. Their mind is going to be cool. I think they're going to be able to charge you monthly fee for that. Yeah. That's coming.
I'm sure you're right. So let me first answer Josh's question, then I'll tell you what I hope the solution to that is. My remote access to my Home Assistant happens to be through Nabukasa, which is the for-profit company, maybe it's not-for-profit, the not-for-profit company that owns all the Home Assistant IP. And I've actually written to them and say, can I buy 2 subscriptions just so you get more of my money? Because I love these guys. And it's like $100 a year or something like that. They allow me to get into my Home Assistant without exposing Home Assistant and without a VPN. So I don't actually need it, but I can just, so this address right here that you see me going after is my Nabukasa address, which then they establish a tunnel into Home Assistant. Among the things you can do if you pay that is I have a skill for Alexa that will let you do Alexa integrations like turn the lights off in the kitchen or whatever. And what I'm trying to find, and I'm failing miserably, is the place where you expose the entities. I feel like it's right there. That's not right. Sorry. But anyway, there's a place in here where you can choose all of the entities that you want to expose. Because if you expose every single one, it'd be confusing. And you can rename them. Because I might call my living room lights living room, but by voice you want to be called living room lights or something like that. So that's one way of doing it. And then among the crazy things I have done, ooh, there it is. Okay, so let's say that you don't want to use that integration, or it just doesn't work for you because in this case it was too fancy. I forget exactly how I did this. It's been a long time, but I created a virtual light. It's not a real light. It's actually, the light's name is Alexa Virtual 01. And in the Amazon Echo configuration, you can set up routines, bless you, for things like, well, anything you want, any random voice. For example, Alexa, good night. And I told Alexa that when I say Alexa, good night, I want you to set the brightness of Alexa Virtual 1 to, it's either, it's 13. Set Alexa Virtual 1 to 5%, which is 13 out of 255. It's a 1 byte thingy. And then I trap that in this code. And when I get a 13, I switch to night mode. So in other words, I tricked Alexa into thinking it was controlling a light bulb, but it was really controlling something else, and gave myself 100 possible things I could call of brightness 0, well, 90 things, because you can't do extremes. That's one way I found, and I did that before the other integrations exist. So that was my way of doing extremely custom things with Alexa. Simpler things like turn the lights off, you can do with that Nabukasa subscription, and you don't need any programming for that. But the third thing you can do is write your own Alexa skill. So anyone who has an Alexa, there's a marketplace of skills. For example, it's free. You can get the Tesla skill, which I use to tell, if I don't want to use Home Assistant, I use my Alexa to say, Alexa, turn the heat on in the car. So that, because it's an electric car, just turn the heat on. That's a skill you just add from the library, but you can write your own skills from scratch and you can do anything. But in that case, you're going to have to expose your own HTTPS endpoint somewhere on the public internet, because when you ask Alexa to do something, she sends it to the cloud translates it, the cloud makes the API call, and the API call has to be to a public HTTPS endpoint, which you can do, but probably not on your own, probably need a server in the cloud somewhere to do that, which then in turn has a VPN back to your house. So that would be for the advanced user. But the basics that is good for almost everyone is just use Nabukasa and do that. Works like a champ. What was I going to say? Oh, the voice. So go ahead. You could use, yes, you could absolutely use the routines. It's just that if you want your routine to do something that then runs a program instead of just turns the lights on and off, that's why I did this other stuff. This actually is a routine. The routine, it's a routine that says, when I say Alexa, good night, the routine says set light number 30, set Alexa virtual to brightness of 5%.
Yeah, but you could say, when I say good night, I go, night.
I don't think so, because Alexa doesn't understand that concept. Alexa isn't going to understand an input select as well as it understands a light bulb. Now, I could have a light bulb called night mode that's not really a light bulb and just turn it on, like a virtual light bulb. And I just elected to be a little more complicated than that, the way I did it. But I mean, the answer is yes, you could do it however you wanted to do it. What I can't remember right now is how I created a virtual light bulb. I'm sure it was 2 a.m. one day and I've just forgotten, but I know you can, I obviously did it. I just forget how I did it. So Nabukasa which is the home assistant company, is working on. I'm gonna forget how to get there. I don't want to waste your time, but home assistant year of they are 2023 was their year to try to do their own voice, which is hard. I mean, there's a reason why Amazon and Google can't really get it right, but I mean, it's pretty good when you think about it. Well, this is not they can't make a website apparently. But they're very much. Francis, so nice to meet you. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you. Home Assistant is working on a website. There we go. Year of the Voice. And so there is this, is this going to be the right page? It might not be. But anyway, they're working on hardware and software to start approaching what Amazon Echo does, or Google, or whatever you want. It's not there yet. So I think it would still be very frustrating right now to try to use their voice, but I bet in another year they're going to get there because these guys get it. This Paulus guy gets it that we all want to throw out our Echoes, and I give it some time. There are hardware devices out there you can get, but they're just not pretty, and you've got to push a button to wake them up. That's not what we want, right? They're working on it. So Home Assistant, Year of the Voice, you can read the blogs.
Yeah, just starting to.
You are going to keep the house here for the foreseeable future, right? Because when I thought about selling, I was like, shit, what am I going to do?
No, we're not going to.
Good. I thought you were saying. Well, you remember one day you asked me how would I do X, and I tried to make you install Home Assistant. You were like, "Whoa, slow down a little bit."
No, yeah, I wanted to replace the thermostatic switch. We had a switch,
And you knew I did that.
yeah. But then I found a better thermostatic switch.
Yeah, well, you found an easy way to do it without having to rewire your whole house like I wanted you to do.
Yeah. Yeah, my whole house, like I don't have hard wires running through any of my house except for from the street to the router.
And I don't have. I mean, I retrofitted what I have, so I don't do much.
Do you have those smart light bulbs or?
So I originally had a whole bunch of LIFX light bulbs. I've kind of stopped buying new ones because I'm trying to get away from Wi-Fi, because Wi-Fi is so heavy for home automation. But they were good and they're integrated with Home Assistant. I still run several of them. What I've gone to now mostly is if it's a light that's controlled with a wall switch, I've replaced the wall switch with these things. I've replaced it with these Innovelli Reds, which last I looked weren't available. There's a new version coming out, but they look like this, and this is why I like them so much. This is the thing I was talking about. I can make this LED any color I want. I can make it flash. Problem is they're $60 a pop. They were when they were available. I've been getting them on eBay. And they just replaced the light switch with it. It's dimmable. Yeah. And I've been happy that I'm replacing. I had old X10 stuff that I'm replacing slowly. So that's what I do for switches for lights that are controlled by a wall switch.
Is that not Wi-Fi?
That's Z-Wave.
Oh,
you can get a Z-Wave or a Z version.
Okay.
And again, so Z-Wave is relatively low power, very, very low bit rate because you're just turning lights on, and considerably longer range. And every wired device acts as a repeater.
Okay.
So my Z-Wave network is, with every wired device you add, your Z-Wave network gets stronger. But you can also have battery-powered devices on both Z-Wave and Zigbee. With Wi-Fi, you can't. More or less. And then I do have some floor lamps that are Wi-Fi only because I love the floor lamps. In fact, I keep buying more. They're like $60 a pop. So every 6 months I buy another one. I'm trying kind of like replacing all my floor lamps with the same thing. They're kind of pretty. I'll show you if I can find it. The only way I can ever find anything is by looking at my orders. There we go. These things, I love these things. They're not really prisms, but they can be any color. They can be any one color you want them to be. It doesn't do this. And then connecting them to Home Assistant is annoying, but once you get it working, you got it. It's all cloud controlled, so there's no local control. They're beautiful. So I have those floor lamps, and then I have kind of cobbled together systems for my combination fan, a ceiling fan with lights. And the problem is my house is wired old so that the switch controls both. So in my bedroom, I actually went up in the attic, tore everything apart, and rewired everything. So I have two separate devices. Right. Other than that, sadly, the rest of the house I've not dealt with those, but I don't use those rooms as much. So the thing, when you're buying, if you want to buy something and you want to connect it to Home Assistant, number one, make sure it's going to work with Home Assistant. And number two, if you can, you want something that's local and not cloud. Yeah. Because in my house, when you walk into the living room and you turn on living room lights, I have 3 of those and 2 of the light fixes. The light fixes are controlled locally, and those 3 are in the cloud. You come in, the light fixes pop on. These take 3 seconds.
And that lamp is pretty bright.
Which one?
That lamp is bright.
Maybe not.
Yeah. Oh no, these lamps are pretty good.
2,000 lumens.
Yeah, there you go. 2,000 lumens, and the neatest thing that I like about these is and my other bulbs is you can control the color temperature. So up until noon, I have it bright. Yeah. Not bright, but cool. Yeah. And then in the evening before bed, I warm the temperature. I don't know if it's really helping me fall asleep at night, but it might be.
Yeah, we just couldn't get it.
Yep. Yeah, these are. I like that room primarily with these now, and I'd say they're plenty. Honestly, I don't think they look like that. I think that's a bad picture because I think I want to say that maybe I'm wrong. I want to say that the edge is naked glass, but I might be making that up. Take a picture of the actual one. Yeah, they're bright. They're definitely bright enough for me, and I don't like it to be too dim. I've also bought a bunch of just regular dimmable LEDs to replace the ceiling, the lights and the fixtures controlled by the wall switches, because I don't really need to control the color of them, and it's good.
That's what I
Yeah.
Yeah. Just a point where you're just like, okay, I could buy these light bulbs for like $2 a piece, or I could buy these really expensive light bulbs for like $15 a piece. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, make it red and purple.
I'm sorry, I got to bounce.
All right.
Yeah, really nice to meet you guys. Yeah, have a good one.
You know me. I told you I would stop talking until you threw me out. Thank you. Oh, wait. Do we still have it? Oh, that's right. I do run the screws. Are they ready? Are our people online still here? Hello? Nope. They've had it with our behavior. That's okay. Oh, Sam's still here. Sam? Oh, he says he is here. Well, I think we're going to say goodnight, Sam. So thank you very much for joining us. Bye. Bye. You're welcome. Thank you, Sam.